Hey, what's up and hello? This is the Chris Nicole bringing you my views on life, love, and the world of entertainment through my eyes. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on what time you are watching this live. Hello, crew. Hope all is well. Make sure you hit the like button on the way in. So, I have talked about this family before. I actually the day that Tina Turner passed, I was actually gonna I did a review on the Bobby Debarge story that was on TV1. And interesting enough, when I was gonna do a review on it, I was gonna compare it to like an excellent like biopic, like a Tina Turner biopic compared to the garbage and trash that they did with the Bobby Debarge story. And lo and behold, as I was doing my notes and about to create my video, found out that Tina Turner had passed. So it was just crazy that the timing of that happened. But I definitely spoke about Bobby DeBarge, the story that they did on TV1, which was horrible, didn't give any justice to what the family went through. Like I said, in my personal opinion, their story cannot be on a family friendly channel like a TV1. If they are going to do it, it would definitely have to be on like a HBO or a Showtime where they can get very explicit, because I feel like their story is like Precious on steroids. Okay. So with that, hey Danielle, hey Trina. So with that being said, lo and behold, there is now a new documentary that is coming out called Debarge. Okay. This is a film by a guy named Matthew Soretta. I don't know who he is. I didn't even bother looking him up. Kind of have an issue with this documentary. I'm not going to even lie. It's gonna be or was at the Slam Dance Film Festival. From my understanding, people saw it. They said it was absolutely sad, horrific. The problem is, though, is that for the most part, people who know of the DeBarges know the DeBarges story. So for the life of me, I do not understand why we needed this documentary. I do not understand. And in my personal opinion, I feel it is exploiting them. We clearly know that they have addiction issues. We clearly know that they have had multiple passings in their family. The first one being Bobby DeBarge, who died from complications of AIDS. I believe in 95, if I'm not mistaken, when I did my research. The father, who was definitely the most sickening mofo out of the situation, has passed years ago. Tommy DeBarge, who was another DeBarge. Bobby and Tommy were in a group called Switch back in the 70s and early 80s. He has also passed. And then the mother, Ederline DeBarge, who, in my opinion, is just as responsible for allowing the things that happen to her kids. I don't care. I'm saying it. I read both her book. I read both Bunny's book. I also listened to Tommy DeBarge's book. Yeah, that mother, no. Especially when Bunny said that her father SA'd her. She finally told her mother. They left the house, but she decided to move back in with the father and tell Bunny she needed to come back home and try to convince her to come back home, even though she was away from the father. She told her, why don't you come back home, even though the father was still living there? So I had no compassion for that lady, in my personal opinion. I remember the Switch Unsung. I think his name is Greg, one of the guys who was in Switch that grew up with Bobby DeBarge in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He said that he felt like Ederline did not see things with realistic eyes or something of that nature. Personally, asked me, in my personal opinion, I don't think the mother, how can I say this? I guess the nicest way I can say it, I don't think she was all there. I guess that's the nicest way I can say it. I don't think she was all there. And a mixture of that and also being very, very religious and not trying to execute actions with praying resulted in her kids being tremendously effed up. Okay. Considering the fact that I think almost all of them, I don't know about the last two, but all of them, at least that were in the industry, have all had some type of addiction issues and have had plenty of other issues going on, not to mention grandkids who have been unalived and things like that. I truly feel there's something in their bloodline. I feel like there's a curse on that family, but I also feel like, of course, their parents is what really set the foundation of what's going on, and what was going on in their household. So, with that, this documentary focuses on James Debarge and Randy Debarge. Both of them were a part of the Debarge group back in the 80s. For those who may not know, who are not familiar with the group, some of their hit songs is I Like It, All This Love, Rhythm of the Night. For those who have maybe watched Berry Gordy the Last Dragon, their video was actually featured in that. Very popular group back in the early 80s, and not just for their melodies, their writing abilities, and their producing abilities, but they were considered like this very attractive family. Okay. They have a black mother, a white father. They were considered like the ooh la las. You know what I'm saying? So, for example, this is what they looked like in the early 80s. Okay. This is what they looked like. So here you have, going from the one in the purple, I believe that's Marty DeBarge, the only girl and the oldest of the family, Bunny DeBarge. Randy is in the yellow. You have El DeBarge, which is kind of like the most popular one. They consider him like the Michael Jackson of the family. And then you have James DeBarge, okay, with the long hair. Well, all of them had long hair, but with the blue suit on, okay? Now compare this picture. You see the yellow shirt and the blue suit. That is both Randy and James DeBarge, okay? Look at this picture right here, you guys. Stare at the picture right now, okay? You're staring at it? Great. Now look. Notice Randy is still in yellow. Interesting enough. This is Randy recently, and this is James. Okay? So this is what they look like now. We clearly know this is not just age. This is years and years and years of addiction. All right? Yeah. Let's do a comparison again. Yellow, Randy, blue suit, James. To now. All right? Now, in my opinion, they're being exploited. We clearly know they have addiction issues. At this point, I'm sure a hot meal and maybe even $20 would do enough. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if they signed off on contracts. I don't know. But what I do know is, in my opinion, they're not in the right state of mind to be not only agreeing to a documentary, but yeah, I do have an issue with this. Because one thing about it is that you can capitalize off of that Debarge story because it's a very sad, sickening story. It's a very sad, sickening story. You know, James was married to Janet Jackson for a short amount of time. That is one thing that they cannot get out. They continue to keep talking about that story. They continue to not only talk about that story, but even talk about Michael Jackson like that. That is kind of like their forever thing. And I guess it's because that is the only connection they had to someone continuing their legacy. Like the Jacksons' legacy is stamped. Even with how Michael passed at age 50, his legacy is 50 times over. He will always be the greatest of all time. Janet, the same thing. She don't have to make another album. Everything. Jackson 5, all of that. The Debarges, however, though, for the short amount of time that they were in the industry, they made a lot of classics that still people listen to still to this day. Unfortunately, though, the downside of the industry and the addiction to me has been more of it's more of a clickbait versus their actual music. Okay, especially in this social media world. So I don't know what, because in my personal opinion, you just randomly doing a documentary, somebody has to sign off on papers, someone has to give their rights. Something tells me they don't have an attorney. You know what I mean? Something tells me they don't have that. I'm going to actually play for you guys the actual documentary clip. There's going to be a certain part, though, that I'm going to have to mute because they actually play the I Like It song. And y'all know I ain't trying to get no copyright strike. That's a hell no. But I am going to play it so then that way you guys can see this and how I just feel this documentary is unnecessary, and I feel like it's exploiting the hell out of the family. And again, when you're dealing with a freaking addict, I mean, hell, they may sign their rights away for a damn cheeseburger. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not dealing with people who are in their right state of mind. And I don't like this at all, okay? Don't like it. But let me actually play it for you guys, and we're going to talk about it because this is just freaking insane to me. In freaking sane. All right, so let's go here. All right, so there we go.
Brother, I'll come out and deal with you. Are you playing the bass in I Like It?
Yeah.
And that song, I know you wrote the lyrics. What inspired that?
I just started thinking I like it. I was actually thinking about, I was kind of hungry. I was thinking about.
This is Randy.
Ooh, when I like it. Feel the most fun every time I take one look at you.
Okay, so that's when the song comes on. They're talking about Randy. Randy is the one who wrote the song I Like It. And he's actually the first person who sings on the verse. People thought it was L, but it was actually Randy. And then this is James. And then I'm going to play it hopefully at the time when they stop doing the... Okay, hold on. It's still playing.
Me and L knew it when we heard it. When you were playing it, we knew it was a hit right off the top. That's why we ran upstairs. When we stopped everything we were doing, we ran upstairs to jam with you. First words came out of his mouth to you was, Randy, that's a hit, man. Yeah. You know what I mean? All right, man.
Yeah, I'll be back.
Love you, bro. Come back and we'll jam, all right?
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah.
So that's the clip of the documentary, okay? That is the clip of this guy, whoever he is. He's actually the one who is doing this documentary. And they are living in some type of broken down trailer in somewhere in California. With a dog, okay? Now, interesting enough, they still have instruments, okay? They are still jamming to music and create music because that's pretty much all they know. But they're living in a trailer. I don't understand the point of this documentary. We already know how sad their story is. You know what I'm saying? Like this, we know how sad their story is. Why do we need to see them currently living in a trailer? Still probably suffering from addiction. So unnecessary to me. I don't know if this is going to get picked up by a network. I know it was played at a festival. Typically, when people want their stuff at a festival, the next course of action would be that hopefully someone would pick up the documentary and buy the documentary so then that way it can get played on like a major network. So, it is possible that somebody would be willing to possibly pick it up. And again, what's so interesting is, let them tell it back in the 80s when they were actually in the industry. They said they got screwed over with their royalties and rights back then. Okay, that they got screwed over with their royalties and rights even back then. And it's interesting that it kind of almost seems like maybe history is repeating itself. Typically in documentaries, the only person, if there is going to be someone who's getting paid, the only person who's going to get paid is the one who created the documentary, the one who is doing the filming, the one who is constantly there day and night filming these people. That is the one who typically gets the money or some type of notoriety or benefit off of the documentary, not the people who are usually in the documentary. Okay, we have heard this and seen this plenty of times before. There was a famous documentary back in the late 80s. Well, I think it actually aired by the early 90s, but it started in the late 80s, called Paris is Burning. One of my favorite documentaries about the ballroom scene in New York City. Okay, that's where it all began for the LGBTQIA community. Well, I remember when that came out, and if you go back, there were people who were in the documentary, like, Willie Ninja and so many others who were in Paris is Burning, complaining about how their whole lives was exposed on that documentary, but apparently they really didn't get paid that much money. And that, they were even talking about the lady allegedly who did the documentary, because she got the notoriety and all of this, and they thought that she got a lot of money. Now, she claims she didn't really get a lot of money. At most, she was able to pay her rent on time, probably for the first time, but she claims she didn't get it. But the reality is, they will probably never know how much money she made off of that. But it's clear that they felt like they didn't get anything. So usually the person that's getting exploited in a documentary does typically not receive anything. And something just tells me whatever they signed off, they did not read it properly, did not understand it properly. They probably got a little bit of chump change to possibly get some food or get their high. And now they are being exploited left and right in this. And from my understanding, L has heard about this documentary and he's not happy. Now, the reality is, this is life. It is life. And we clearly know that the Debarges are not, to a certain extent, doing well. They have had issues with addiction for years. I believe they were even on the show Dr. Drew, if I'm not mistaken, at one point. Being from LA, there's not one person that I don't know that knows a story about a Debarge. And whether that is an issue of addiction and them copying, so to speak, or issues with women, so to speak, you have heard stories about them. Okay. Yes, L is also, now, he was just recently arrested, I want to say a couple years ago, apparently with some type of substances, but he has also had an issue. From my understanding, there's 10 kids. There are twins who are the last two. I don't know what their status is, because they're not the famous Debarges. The famous Debarges start with are the first 8. Okay, those are the famous Debarges. Every last one of them has had addiction issues. Every last one of them. Every one. So when you have every single child like that going through something, that's a sign of also bad parenting. I don't care. I said it. It's a sign of bad parenting. It's a sign that there was definitely something going on in that household, because even James, which is the one who married Janet Jackson, he has said multiple times that Bobby Debarge, and let me show you who Bobby is. Bobby Debarge is the one here to your right, and then that's Tommy Debarge. So the one that looks like they have like a white collar on, that is Bobby, and then the one that looks like it has all black, that's Tommy. Bobby's the older brother. He's the oldest son of that Debarge crew. Bobby alleged that his father not only abused him, but allegedly, I believe they have said that he admitted that he was SA'd by the father also. I know Bunny says she was SA'd by the father, but it has been rumored that he was also SA'd by the father. And in return, he abused some of his younger siblings and also SA'd them. Okay. And even so much so, Tommy Debarge has a book that's out. You guys can either buy it, or I believe there's still the lady that is actually on YouTube who actually reads it out loud. Who actually reads it out loud. You can probably go to her page, just look up Tommy Debarge's book and see if it's still up there when she reads it. Tommy Debarge, which was right under Bobby, admitted that Bobby SA'd him. So, and James said Bobby was always trying to unalive him and did the worst things to him, the absolute worst things to him, because James was their father's pick. He was the favorite. The father, catered to him, definitely, gave him more toys, gave him more love. Meanwhile, the oldest brother, Bobby, got abused. All right. So because of that, Bobby hated James. And Tommy has admitted that Bobby did stuff to him. James has admitted Bobby did stuff to him. Wouldn't be shocked if he probably did other things to the other kids too. And this is happening right up under the same roof of all the other stuff that was going on. Okay. So they really have demons. A lot of demons. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it would truly have to be, you know what I'm saying? It would truly have to be a major deliverance for them to really be able to cleanse that bloodline of all of the stuff that's going on. Like, I truly feel like there's a curse on this family. Not to mention Chico, which was a solo artist. He wasn't part of Debarge, but I don't know if you guys remember Chico Debarge. He just had a son recently, a couple of years ago, who was unalived in the streets out here in LA. And then Randy Debarge, his son, something happened to his son who's also unalive. And I think it was also under suspicious circumstances. So when I tell you this family can't catch a break, they can't. You know what I mean? Like, they cannot catch a break. So for this to come out, you know what I'm saying? Like, for this to come out, that's not accurate, Danielle. You talking about the Latino group. That's not the Debarges. You're talking about the Latino group, the Menudo brothers or something like that. Not the Debarges, not the Menendez daddy. That's a whole different group. That's a whole different group. As far as that is concerned, the Debarges weren't, I don't think, affiliated at all with the Menendez father. So yeah, all addiction probably came from, that's a whole different group. All addiction came from abuse. Yeah, they were trying to pretty much numb themselves, from everything that they went through, as talented as they were. But a lot of the times, the most talented people have some of the biggest issues. That's where a lot of times their talent come from. When you really think about some of our most like prodigy type of artists, like artists that you're just like, man, like that only could have been a blessing from God. Like they was born with that gift. A lot of them come from very troubled past. Like a lot of their amazing art comes from pain. Even comedians, if you see like the really great comedians of our time, a lot of them come from pain. That pain drives them to make amazing art. And the Barge was no exception to that. It was no exception to that. They made some amazing songs that I still listen to still to this day. Yeah, the Jacksons, you know what I'm saying, didn't have, like, of course, in my opinion, now that we've learned more, I definitely don't think Joe Jackson was the most innocent. But what I do feel like, when you look at their huge family compared to other huge musical families, he kept that family together. He kept that family together, because that family could have fallen apart way worse like a Debarge or like the Silvers and other big families, but he was able to hold them together. And even when they separated from him, they were still able to go above and beyond. And we can't deny that that had to do with Joe Jackson's discipline to a certain extent. You know what I mean? Like, but you can tell when the Jacksons compared to this family, baby, the Jacksons ain't this nothing. Yeah, they were scared of him. Well, here's the thing. It's interesting because I guess it depends on who you ask. One thing about big families or just in general, you can't, right? I've always been told you can't raise all of your children the same. Some of your children have more sensitive souls than others. Some of them you have to, there's certain ways that you have to, raise your children. I think Michael was a very sensitive soul, whereas some of the older siblings was like, we needed that discipline. He was strict, but I'm saying, we needed that discipline. Michael, I'm saying, like, he just, definitely and of course, like I said, he wasn't perfect. And I personally think that he knew Michael was a sensitive soul, so he picked on him more. You know what I mean? He picked on him more because Michael did say that he would say stuff like, where did you get that big nose from? And, things like that, because he knew it would affect Michael, which is why Michael ended up separating himself from him. But truthfully, if Joe would have, in my opinion, showed more love towards his kids, I don't know. Like, I feel like Michael would have been protected more. Michael would have been protected more. I don't think Michael would have been exposed to all the things that he was exposed to if he had separated from his family. But when you don't trust, what I'm saying, your father, to a certain extent, you separate yourself and then other people are able to get in. But anyways, enough about that. But yeah, with that being said, though, I do not like this at all whatsoever. I don't respect it. This ain't cool for me. Yeah, a lot of the Jacksons are sensitive. They probably get that from their mother. You know what I mean? They probably get that from their mother. Which they absolutely love her. Like, they absolutely love her. But yeah, this Debarge documentary, low key, I hope it doesn't get picked up. Let it stay at the festival and let it stay there. Like, who really wants to see this? But then again, we live in a sick world, so people love to see people worse than off than them. We truly live in that type of society. They literally want to see people worse off than them. That's just what it is. So they could say, well, at least my life isn't like that. So people may see this as entertaining, but I don't know if you guys saw the Debarge Unsung. But by the time you watch Unsung and if you read some of their books, that's all you need to know. There was nothing else that needs to be seen at that point. Like, what documentary about them would you recommend? You talking about the Debarges? The Debarge Unsung. You may be able to see it on YouTube. It may be on YouTube, but Debarge Unsung, it definitely talks about their time in the industry and their addiction issues, and but them finding love through music. Like, honestly, I feel like if they never found their love through music and they never were able to really be able to be successful or somewhat of success, I think a lot of them still wouldn't be here. Like, I think music to a certain extent saved them, because I personally think a lot of them probably would have had addiction issues even if they didn't become famous, because Bobby Debarge apparently already had an addiction issue before they got picked up by Motown. He was already on that H, allegedly. So again, I think they were already going down that path, but the music saved them to live longer from already a destroyed life. And it's sad for me to say that, but yeah, like, once they hit a certain age, their life was already destroyed. They were already going down a bad path, based on what they're saying. And the music and having that talent is was really was able to prolong them and try, and for them to try to have different times of them to stay clean so they can try to remain successful. It's just that that demon, that addiction kept bringing them down with everything else that was bringing them down. So yeah, so it's, it's definitely one of those things where I really don't want this to come out. I don't see what it would gain. If anything, the person who created the film, he will gain off of it. I don't think not one Debarge is going to be able to gain off of this. I don't. I really don't. And I don't even know who would even have the means to be able to see if they can look into this legally to stop it. Because I don't know. I guess the only one who may have the means would be L. L is still the only one who's working. So maybe he would have the means to try to have an attorney look into it. Because to me, I believe with contracts, you got to make sure people are in their right state of mind before they sign off on stuff. I believe there's some type of legal ramifications in regards to that. But if he has the means, hopefully he will look into it. Hopefully he will. Because this is some nonsense. Even though if you know your siblings are down bad, you damn sure don't want to exploit it to the world. It's already bad enough it was at a film festival. So yeah, this is ridiculous. I highly recommend looking at Debarge Unsung. I highly recommend looking at Switch Unsung. Okay, Switch is the group that Bobby Debarge and Tommy was in, and they're the reasons why Debarge became Debarge in the first place, and why Chico became Chico in the first place, because they started off with their group Switch. So I would highly recommend looking at the Switch Unsung as well, and then checking out those books. Bunny Debarge has a book. I guess you can read Ederline Debarge. Ederline Debarge is the mama. In my opinion, that book, in my opinion, was a lot of cap, if you ask me. To me, if you want the raw possible truth in a situation where you're gonna get the real deal, Bunny's book and Tommy's book. Those are the two kids. From my understanding, Bunny, Bobby, and Tommy were the ones who were abused the most. So I would highly recommend, you read Tommy's book and Bunny's book. And then you will probably understand after you look at all of that what will be the damn point. Especially when they have talked about how the industry exploited them for all these years. I don't know who has the rights to all of those songs, but when I tell you they made millions and probably still making millions for somebody, just not for them. Okay. Major classics back in the 80s. So just wanted to share that with you guys. Definitely check it out. Please let me know what you guys think in the comment section. But everything doesn't need to be filmed. Everything doesn't need to have a documentary. Everything doesn't need to be exploited. We know this story time and time again, over and over again. It is not something, in my opinion, we absolutely need. And I do feel like, in my opinion, there was some type of manipulation in this situation. People who have addiction issues, they're not in the right state of mind. We know this from seeing, so whether it's experiences from your own personal life of people that who've dealt with addiction issues, or if you watching documentaries or shows, they're not in their right state of mind, and they will do the unthinkable to get a high. You know what I'm saying? Or to get food or to get shelter. So yeah, who really signed off on this? Who really did? So definitely, it's one of those things where it's just like, gosh, like, come on, y'all. Like, what rights did y'all give away? What did this man give you for him to be able to do this documentary where y'all look like y'all haven't showered in months? You haven't brushed your teeth in months. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you're living in a trailer that more than likely, of course, don't have no water, no nothing. Like, this is no. This is a no for me. But definitely for those who maybe have seen it, because I do know it was already actually at the film festival. So I have seen some people comment that they did see it and it was absolutely heartbreaking, which is another point that I'm making. What do we need to see it for? But for those who do check out my video, if you did see it, by all means, please give me your take on it. Do you feel it's necessary? Do you feel we need to see this, and why? Especially if we already know the story of the Debarges. And I'm gonna tell you, if I hear another Janet Jackson or Michael Jackson story one more time, unfortunately, the Debarges have to have the Jacksons a part of their legacy. The Jacksons don't need the Debarges a part of theirs. That's the sad part. The Debarges have to constantly mention the Jacksons to stay relevant. The Jacksons don't. Even their own mother, a couple years ago before she passed, swore up and down that James, she kept saying that James and Janet got a secret child. And this one girl who came out, y'all got to check out that video. This girl who looked nothing like she could be a mixture of Janet and James came out claiming she was a secret child of Janet and James. And literally, that mama, Edeline Debarge, sat up there and said she absolutely believed that girl, that she was the actual secret child of James and Janet. This is when I knew, even 10 times over, even before, when I felt like I don't think she was playing with the full deck. That's when I definitely knew she wasn't playing with a full deck. But I think that's been the case with her. That was not the case as she was getting older. I think that's always been the case with her. Yeah, you remember her, right? And you was like, there is no way in hell you see Janet and you see James, even if James pulled back from other generations, that is nowhere James and Janet's child. And they owned the Debarge mama was like, yeah, I believe it. I believe it. Even I think Bunny had to come out and say, my mama is tripping. My mama is tripping. No. And if she could just please leave Janet alone and leave this situation alone. Right. Exactly. So, and you definitely will hear some interesting stories about their mother too in Bunny and Tommy's book. You know what I'm saying? That mama wasn't innocent. She plays the victim because she was also, going through DV and everything else when it came to the father. But yeah, they have definitely had their issues with their mother. As much as they loved her, they had their issues. But even Bunny said in that documentary, we knew very early on that we could not trust her because she was also afraid of our father as well. So there was definitely a lot of issues and anger behind what happened in their childhood, and rightfully so. So yeah, that's my take on it. We don't need to see this. I really hope, I understand that guy probably put a lot in this documentary, but I don't care. There's just certain things, I wouldn't be able to even have the heart to record them. It would just turn me off and say, there's other ways to, make documentaries. There's other things that you could definitely be talking about. You know what I mean? It's, why this? Why this? And of course, clout is one hell of a drug, like you said. But at the same time, that also includes people who want to, do documentaries and stuff. They try to find the most gut-wrenching thing that they could possibly do so they can get views. And I don't, I'm saying, not saying that this is what this guy did, but it makes me curious to know exactly what did you offer them for them to do this documentary. I'm looking him up and he doesn't really he's not really known. He's not really known, whoever this guy is. Actually, this looks like his first actual documentary. So, yep, that explains it. There it is. So he probably looking at this as an opportunity, to sit up there and get some type of, notoriety. But I don't know. It's not worth it for me. But again, this is my opinion. This is all alleged. With that being said, you guys, let's continue the conversation below. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you on my next video. Toodles.